So your background is in design. That's kind of your educational background. And this is kind of not the stuff you learn in design school. So can you talk about how you got started and how you decided that 900 pounds is what you wanted to do?
Well, I've always been a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. When I was in 5th grade, I would draw posters after soccer practice, and I'd go to school the next day and sell them for 50 cents a piece. I got in trouble for that. The teacher was like, "Why are you taking these kids' lunch money?" And I'm like, "Well, it's cool. I'm doing some cool art." And so I had to give all that money back. And so the entrepreneurial spirit was kind of there from early on. But we started the company working with the Dallas Mavericks. Then we started working with Activision, doing large-scale jumbotron animations and visual content. And then the Perot Museum of Nature and Science came to fruition in Dallas. Has anybody been to the Perot Museum? All right, got a couple of, wow, maybe 15%. Have you guys ever ran against the T-Rex and the cheetah and the athletes? Yeah, we got oh yeah, cool. That project kind of kicked things off on the interactive side. Large-scale visual content, interactive touch screen, so that's kind of where it started, and things have just evolved from there. I mean, paying attention to the industry and the market, and being nerds and being ahead of the curve on a lot of these technology tools, it's kind of how it happened.
Yeah. When you decide that this is what you want to do, right, and you don't know a ton about it, how do you put a team together to start something like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the entrepreneurial vision right there, is just trying to assemble an awesome team around you to understand that mission and that vision, and having that passion and that purpose every day, and coming to work and wanting to do that complex work that we do. That's the challenge we all face in here as entrepreneurs, and I've got a heck of a team around me. I mean, just a fantastic team. So we have a really good culture. People like to come to work every day, no matter how stressful things can be at times. We try our best to make it fun. But that is the challenge. I mean, building a team that believes in your vision and believes in that collective vision, and everybody supports each other, feels valued, feels appreciated, and speaking with actions and not just words.
One thing we talked about on the phone before this that I thought was really interesting was a lot of your clients are big names, right? Can you talk about if the kind of the pressure or the environment when you're working for people where your work is going to be seen, and that these are big clients?
Yeah, I mean, our clients put their trust in their belief in us to pull off these innovative initiatives, and I mean, so we come to work every day, with some pressure on us to succeed and to push through those milestones and to deliver a great product. So at the end of the day, I mean, they're sometimes putting a little bit of a point in their career on the line, so you really want to go the extra mile and make sure that you're understanding their objectives as a business. And we work with major Fortune 500 companies, thankfully, and I could name a whole slew of them: DXC Technology, Bell Helicopter, Royal Caribbean, Activision, the list goes on, and we're very thankful. Amazon, AWS, DFW Airport. So they believe in us, and we've got a job to do, and we want to do it as well as we can.
One of the things that I've always kind of talked about in here and is that I think we learn a lot from stories. I think there's a lot to gain there. So do you have stories of success or failure in your business that you could share with us?
So many stories. Gosh, every week is a learning experience. Every day is a learning experience. You try your best to be a good leader. There's times when you fail. There's times when you over-explain. There's times when you're not transparent enough to your team. There's times where, it goes on and on. I mean, you try to treat your team as good as possible. I mean, even last week we had a situation where there's a former independent contractor that worked for us for about 4 months, and he was an awesome guy, super talented, but he didn't know he needed to save money for taxes. We also treated him more like an employee than a contractor. We gave him a workstation. He had a supervisor and director, and he called me out of the blue. We had our contract in with him, and we didn't have really the work to support his position in the company in that department. Shook hands, good to see you, but I get a call from him about 2 months later saying that, hey, I had to go to the Workforce Commission. You guys treated me a little bit more like an employee. And I was like, you know what, we sure did. That's my mistake and our bad, but we need to help him pay for his taxes and help him get, back on his feet. And it was a mistake I made. I mean, I could go on and on. Client challenges, maybe we miss a milestone. Recently with Bell Helicopter, we had a job to do, a big project. I mean, a lot of working parts to that project, a lot of technicalities, a lot of animation and visual content, and we missed a milestone. We were days late in delivering that, and we need to make that call to that executive and say, man, we missed this one. Like, we're genuinely sorry. We're going to learn from it. We're not going to do it again. Now we're in the middle of another project with them, and we're crushing it. So there's in the trenches challenges every day, but that's what you wake up for as an entrepreneur. You're problem solving, you're leaning on your team, your strategy meetings, your advisory council. I have an amazing set of advisors, so they help me brainstorm and get through some of that stuff sometimes. So anyways.
Yeah. One thing you also talked a lot about that I think is really interesting is you talk a lot about company culture and the importance of it. Can you talk about what that looks like, how you go about creating it, the importance of it in the first place? Can you talk about all those things?
I think culture is a mindset, it's an attitude, it's a belief in the vision. I guess if I was to summarize culture, it'd be the sum of all of the communication, all the working parts of the people in the organization. Mm-hmm. So when you believe in those people and you trust them and they trust you, you adhere to your belief systems and core values, you try to have fun and you take your field trips and you experience things and brainstorm together. Just make the team feel like they're a part of a team going in the same direction. And so I think it's more of a subconscious attitude, if I was to say. I think culture is just a very broad statement. It's kind of intangible in a lot of ways, but every company has to have it, and there's a lot of companies that don't have it, and they don't have it well. And people go to work every day not excited at all to go to work. And I think it's a balance of EQ and IQ. There's a lot of leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs that have really high IQs, super smart, way smarter than I'll ever be or any of us in here, but they lack on the emotional side of things. They're not aware of the feelings and the environment and the attitude, and they're just focused on maybe just the financials or the business objectives. You've got to pay attention and be aware of the people. I mean, you can't have great clients without the people, and you can't have great people without the clients.
One thing I was going to ask about is what does it mean to you? This kind of ties into the culture thing, but being a Christian in entrepreneurship and starting a business, what does your faith look like in all of that?
Good question. I think that faith is in entrepreneurship and being a leader is being, speaking with actions louder than words, having trust in your team, having a set of principles you go by, and you treat the team bigger than yourself. You take yourself out of the equation and you lead in that. I think it's a way of leadership and just being purposeful and intentional with that in mind.
A couple of the questions that we kind of always ask, and then I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions in just a minute. So after these, we'll open it up to y'all, so be thinking. But one is if you have a piece of advice for entrepreneurs, for young entrepreneurs, what is it?
Oh man, just research, find what you're passionate about, where you wake up every day super pumped to do that, because you're going to need to go through a lot of hard times as an entrepreneur, rough times where a lot of people would give up, and you need to have that persistence and that passion. And I think at the end of the day, you got to enjoy the process. You got to enjoy whatever it is that you're doing. There's a long journey from starting out, being a startup, to like a 10-year mark where we're at. We have 25 or so employees at this point, a couple of contractors, and hiring on several more, and it's an exciting time in the company. And I think the bottom line is we appreciate the process, and you're never going to have the processes down. Every week is a learning experience. You're always tweaking those to get better and more efficient, more productive. But at the end of the day, as a student, you need to find out what you wake up every day wanting to do. And it's going to change, though. When you first get out in the marketplace and you get that first job or two, you're going to learn so much, and you're going to apply all that knowledge you're learning here, and it's going to be fast and furious. And you may pivot. 2 years in, you may be like, man, I thought I loved video games, but video games, God, they suck to create. I'm going through the trenches, and this is hard as heck, and the team's super stressed, and I don't like video games anymore. I like playing them, but I don't want to create them. So, it's things like that.
One more, and then we'll open to you guys. When you're doing this much work, kind of all the time, how do you balance like work and life and the stress of it all?
You need to find an awesome significant other. My wife is just fantastic, and my mom and my parents and my family. My dad passed away a couple years ago, but you will have a good support system around you. That's what you need, because there's going to be times where it's challenging. I think the other thing would be, you've got to be intentional and try to balance as best you can. You've got to be a good father if you have kids. We don't have kids yet, but you've got to just be aware and lean on a team and give that trust and autonomy and get away when you have to get away, because when you love what you do, it's easy to work 14 hours in a day, but you've got a family at home, so you've got to balance it all, and it's not easy. I think that's one of the entrepreneur dilemmas, if there ever was one. That's probably one of the top, is work-life balance. But there's a such thing as integrators and segmenters. Most entrepreneurs are integrators. You work a little bit on the weekends, you work a little bit at night if you need to. You wake up super early before anybody else does and get to the office sometimes. It's usually not I'm going to cut the clock off at 5:30 on Friday and I'm not going to touch work till 7:45 a.m. on Monday. That's not going to work as a leader or an entrepreneur. So you got to make sure you're committed to being that and leading by actions. Mm-hmm. But I could go on and on and on. But having a good support system is key, and just believing in that vision.
Yeah. All right. Do you guys have any questions?
Bring them. Let's do this.
Nobody? Yeah.
What is one of the biggest lessons you've learned, leading others and leading your employees to get to success?
People are people, and it's hard when you have 25 to 30 humans in one ecosystem or one office. So you just got to make sure that you understand and try your best to, read books, but you're going to experience a whole lot in person, of course, and you're going to, we've just got our latest edition of our handbook, and so that has a lot of our policies and things like that. We try our best to make it really fun, but there's got to be a framework sort of rules in the environment. But we have a fractional HR team that we just brought on, which at the 10-year milestone, you thought we'd have done that years ago, but everything's an incremental, patient journey, step by step. Success isn't going to happen overnight, but people, we're all humans, and we got to learn to do a job together. So you got to make sure to take the time. I like to take walks around the block if there's a challenge, or somebody's got a challenge on a project, or I feel like somebody's been a little off in the past few days, or I hear about a situation between them and another team member. I take the time, I sit there and, hey, can I grab you for 5 minutes? Let's take a quick walk and let's talk it out. Let's figure it out and ask a lot of questions. Don't think that you're going to have the answer for everything. Try to understand what they're going through and ask questions. Yes, ma'am. All right.
Since you are more trained in art and design, and you're kind of creative minded, and you switch to more of a manager position, do you ever miss the hands-on creative work, or do you still get to do that, or how does that work now that you're kind of the founder, head of the company?
I do miss it, but there's creativity in all different ways. If you're an artist, it's one thing to pick up a pencil or a paintbrush, or the latest app on that big old PC or Apple, but it's you find creativity in the culture, in the process, in the team, in the strategy, in the tactical stuff that you go through, trying to make sure you have a good process. So the creativity shifts, but that's one of the hardest things too. Let's say that you really like design, like Zach does, and he's in school for that and crushing on the brand identity side. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Got to know Zach, in case y'all don't know. But there may be a position where Zach wants to start a design agency, a brand agency, and there's going to be a situation where you got to be real with yourself. Do you like being the director of sorts and the orchestrator and building that team together, or do you like doing the work? So there's a transition there. So good question. I miss it sometimes, but I like to draw. I drew our baby puppy on a recent flight. I just got my pen out and I was drawing. I had my little image of him on the phone, and I just drew for 45 minutes. Just be creative. There's a lot of different ways to do that.
One thing that I think would be interesting to talk about is y'all's creative process and kind of the ideation that goes into these big projects. Can you tell us anything about that?
We're a bunch of nerds, like I said, and we really get into the discovery process. So we brainstorm with the client, we ask good questions, we listen to their objectives, and there's a whole lot of user experience type of brainstorming, figuring out what the user needs to, to have and to experience as they navigate through that story. So our process starts with discovery, and then it goes into plan, design, development, launch, which is install, and then maintain. So those are our 6 pillars of process. And each project goes through those, and sometimes there's times where you're more proactive, and sometimes there's times you're more reactive in that process. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's nerdy.
I think that discovery is really big in the workplace now. Kind of in whatever job you're in, you're going to be expected to continue to learn, to continue to take on some different stuff. And that's kind of what you've made your business out of, is that innovation and discovery. Can you talk to us about, or give us any advice on discovery and how to continue to grow and learn and innovate in whatever we're doing?
Well, if you're passionate about something, you're always going to be exploring, you're always going to be discovering, and our clients, they hire us because we are their explorers. We're helping them swim in those murky waters. We're the trailblazers. They're the trailblazers and pioneers in their companies, and they're hiring us to bring that project or that vision to life. And so there's going to be a process of discovering what that company's needs are and then how you can execute. Excuse me. I mean, because at the end of the day, a recent quote, I mean, I'm sure y'all probably heard it before, but ideas are cheap, execution is everything. I mean, you can think of ideas all day, but there's only some people that are going to crush it. So I think this gentleman up here had a question as well.
Yeah, like whenever, especially with like big contracts or big companies,
Excuse me.
if you don't deliver on those and it's sort of like failure, how do you keep from internalizing that and kind of keep striving forward for bigger contracts?
Great point. You just have to learn from it. You have to make sure that the team learns from it and make sure that client understands that you're not going to let them down again. And once in a while, you're going to let people down, and you have to understand that failure is a learning experience. We're always going to fail once in a while, right? But if we can just make sure that we try to mitigate that as much as possible, communicate early and often is something I've learned the hard way early in my career is, and our directors and leaders of our departments, it's like if we see an issue arising, I mean, we want to communicate that early. We don't want to surprise that client who's investing money, time, and energy and belief in us to deliver on those goals. We don't want to leave them hanging. So, but great question. Let's keep them coming. What else? Yes, sir.
What fulfills you the most about being an entrepreneur?
Early on, I realized that you're going to read a lot about the books and stuff. You're just going to see all these success stories. But success in entrepreneurship and business is a small percentage. I mean, you got to define what true success means to you and what your true North Star is. And you've got to understand that the monetary side of it is something you're going to have to go and you're going to have to sacrifice the heck out of times. I mean, there's going to be times where, let's say you first start out and you got $500K, you netted, you grossed, let's say in that second year of business, and profitability in that $500K is $70,000. Well, you're probably going to take that $70,000. You're paying yourself minimal as you can because you saved ahead of time and this and that, but you've got to now reinvest a lot of that right back in the company. It's not going to go in your pocket. So there's a constant incremental growth, and you're investing in that team around you, so you're going to see those results, let's say on the financial side, later. You've got it's a marathon, not a sprint. What fulfills me the most is, again, just being that, pardon my French, badass interactive design agency that clients lean on to get the really cool, complex ideas executed and maintained and bring those to life in a cool way. That gets me out of bed every morning. It's awesome. So, good question, though.
What is something that you wish you knew before starting this?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. There's a whole lot. I mean, God, let me think about that a minute. What I wish I knew. You know, I wish I knew more about people. I wish I would have paid attention more in psychology class. I wish I put my parents through HELL, that's for sure. I mean, I got arrested when I was 17 years old for graffiti, and now we've got an office full of graffiti on the walls. We've got a cool office space. I wish I knew a little bit more about the financial side, something you learn the hard way. You know, you're in the trenches. You're going to be good at something. You're not going to be good at everything. You're going to have a couple things you're really good at, and over time, you're going to bring on the resources and those people that are super, super good at. I wasn't good at math. Okay, I'm a creative guy. I sucked at math. I hated it. Algebra, man, I was always in class asking questions, trying to understand, just trying to pass. But I've got people that are super freaking good at math around me, and a tax team at Cornwall Jackson, great financial team. You know, we've got a good, CPA, and our payroll system is awesome. It's taken care of. Anyways, yeah. Now, I'm from Merkel, Texas, right down the road. I'm from a small town of 4,000 people, the giant metropolis. You can see the skyscrapers from here in the distance. And I loved growing up in Merkel. I mean, the people are super, super cool. My family, gave me opportunities to appreciate the simple things in life and not be, let's say a super materialistic person, which, believe me, being an entrepreneur, you got to wait on some of that stuff. It's going to take time. So, I'm rambling. Yes?
I'm not a business major at all. I'm a graphic designer. So all this is really interesting. But I wanted to ask you, pertaining to your creative side, like, what do you see the future of interactive design, and what creative briefs or projects do you guys get most excited about as a company?
The future of interactive design, there's going to continue to be more and more tools, both tangible and intangible, for us to leverage. So, years ago it was, oh wow, VR is going to be it's going to be incredible. It's going to be, this new tool is going to change everything. And to be honest, it's just another tool that we leverage, right? It's just another interface. But, it's crushing it on the training side and the safety and education and, things like that, more practical business objectives. But the B2C market did not come to fruition like everybody hoped, and so really for us, it's just the future of interactive design is trying to be ahead of the curve, doing the R&D, being there for our clients, being those thought leaders, and understanding all the unique interfaces coming out, all those tools. So that's exciting for us as being pioneers in that way. What's coming next and how we can utilize that and put it in our arsenal to utilize.
I want to end with one
It's almost
last
over.
question. It's almost over, but if you guys want to have lunch with Steve right after this, we've got barbecue.
Yeah.
Talk to me or Phoebe, and we'd love to have you guys to keep this conversation going. But the last thing that I want to ask you is you've told me about how much 900 Pounds has changed since you started it. What does the future of 900 Pounds look like?
Oh, the future's bright. I tell you, more and more of these companies, their innovation teams, they're brainstorming and coming up with ideas all the time in-house, and they're trying to look at what technologies that they can leverage in their tech stack and what kind of innovation initiatives they can create. Yet they're only going to be able to implement a certain amount with their current in-house team. They have a limited amount of agencies that can execute on that vision, and so that's where 900 Pounds is different. And a good resource for them. So the future's bright because technology keeps changing every day, Moore's Law every year, over and over. You've got all those new interfaces and tools that keep coming out, and it's just, Deloitte's new trends research article was fantastic, talking about all the newest tech trends coming out over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, and we're going to be at the forefront of those. As far as what we've gone through as a company, 4 years ago, I came here to speak in 2016, and I was excited and super pumped and very thankful for that. My father had passed away 6 months prior. When I got back to the office a couple months after coming here to speak in 2016, my business partner and I had been on, my former co-founder and I had been on opposite pages for a little while, and we knew that we weren't going in the same direction. And at that point, let's say there was 10 or 12 people on the team, maybe less, maybe 8 or 9 of us. And my business partner and I, we had a tough conversation and we decided to go opposite ways. We worked that out amicably. We're still great friends. He comes in the office 2 or 3 times every month. He helps us on contract work to get us through transitionary periods in that department that he was really focused on when he was in the trenches at 900 pounds. And I'm thankful for him. We all, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for him being a part of that journey, those first 6 years. And so most business relationships, you got to find a good partner and a good team that you trust, because there's going to be differences and you may go separate ways at certain points, but hopefully the company doesn't suffer. And the cool thing looking back 4 years ago is that we've grown the company since then 3 times, 3x. My former business partner, he wanted to stay a little bit more comfortable and he was not as much of a risk taker, let's say. But at the same time, they're calculated risks. The business was growing organically. We don't need to, if the waves are good, get your surfboard and go surf them. Don't stand on the beach and watch the waves go by. So I'm like, let's keep going. And long story short is the company has, again, grown and evolved, and we're killing it. It's a really, really exciting time. So things have moved 25 to 40% year-over-year growth since 2016. So I'm very, very thankful, very grateful.
Let's thank Steve for being here.